Well, g'day and welcome to the Exponential Australia Church Leaders Podcast. We are so delighted that you have joined us here on the podcast today. As we lead into our national conference in just a couple of weeks' time, we are so delighted to be on the Gold Coast with many leaders from right across the Australian church flying in there at New Life Church. Is going to be an absolutely wonderful time. And as we have been journeying towards conference, we've been delighted to be hearing from each of our keynote speakers as part of our conference experience. And it is an absolute treat today to have on the podcast for the second time, Cass Langton joining us all the way from Sydney. Cass, thank you for being on the podcast with us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Charlie. It is a joy.
It is an absolute joy.
Yeah.
Now, I do have to laugh. Sometimes you've just got to call a spade a spade. You got to laugh at yourself. We have had the most ridiculous experience at trying to record this podcast, but I think we're all friends here, and the fact that we have made it to this point, we must be experiencing some spiritual opposition, I think, Cass. That's what's been going on today. But it is so great that we've been able to record this conversation with conference just a couple of weeks away. And Cass, I just wanted to start off our conversation today with just a really hope-filled, optimistic question, and just really asking what is filling you with hope at the moment, particularly as you survey the Aussie church, as you connect with a bunch of different people? We're going to talk about what's happened since we last had you on the podcast, but would love to just hear what's filling you with hope at the moment.
Yeah, it's a really nice question. I like that one. I think, Charlie, to be honest, I think you, no, in the nicest way, I think church planting, our world has changed and the landscape has changed a little bit for us. And I think we have got a broader picture of the church in Australia, and the collaboration across tribes and streams and denominations and the way that all of that is taking place and God is shifting things is really filling me with hope. I love watching people like Rick Thorpe come into new roles and what that means, and the friendships that we have created across denominations of church planters doing similar things. And just watching what the Lord is doing in their communities is really inspiring. That it's no longer about a denomination or a type or a style of church, but it's about people being attentive to what the Holy Spirit is doing amongst these people in this place right now.
Yes. Yeah,
and I think that's so fun to watch. I also am filled with hope because I feel like people are becoming spiritually curious.
Yes.
And we're watching just a lot of that. I guess in our own world, people have been skeptical of institutions, but they're really hungry to find out the reality of Jesus. And I think there are so many churches poised to actually help answer questions of who Jesus is.
That's beautiful, Cass, and just I think a great way to lead into conference, partially because, one of the things that we so look forward to when we get together, as you've rightly said, we've had about 30 denominations present at previous conferences. It feels like a little bit of a family reunion, a little bit of like people coming together, and we're all trying to break new ground. We're all trying to do great things, and yet there's something deeply reassuring and produces a level of fellowship around when you do that with other people that you love and you care for, and you're seeing just the great things that are happening right across the Australian church.
Yeah, and I love the thought that there'd be collaboration around different ways of doing things.
Yes.
Like you draw together so many different streams and there's such a rich diversity from them. We were actually in Asia recently at a conference, and I was sitting next to a Catholic priest on one side and prophetic Pentecostal guys on the other side. Wow. And we were all ministering on the platform. And we walked away from that conference with such a deep sense that God is at work in all these different strands, but there's something to take home from every single one of them.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful, a reverency from the Catholic Church, but an aliveness from the Pentecostals.
Yeah, it's beautiful. How good.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Cass, I'd love to kind of just do a bit of a year or two recap, because when we last had you on the podcast, you guys were pretty fresh into planting the local, but it has been a full couple of years. And so
it has been.
As you look back, what are the things that have surprised you? What are the things that have taken you by surprise? I'd love to just do a bit of a recap before we jump into whetting the appetite for conference in a couple of weeks.
What's taken me by surprise? The amount of work it takes to plant a church. Am I allowed to put that out there?
Absolutely.
I think the biggest surprise is probably what God has done in us through the journey and through the process. I think probably in my imaginary world, we had this idea of the kind of church we would plant and what it would look like and how it would be and what it would feel like and what we would teach and what the music would sound like and what the gatherings would look like. And it was going to be this church that people met round tables, and it was going to be really community driven and full of youth and like all these things. And then the Lord sends different people to what you're imagining, and they all come with ideas and thoughts about the kind of community that they want to be a part of. And together we begin to meld this expression of the church for us in Kellyville that was very different to what I imagined. And so I think the surprise in it has been the beauty of God at work, creating whatever he wants to create, and us playing a part, but actually he's building his church. And I've read it 100 times. I will build my church and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And somehow I still think that I thought, oh, I'll build my church.
Yeah.
And you'll bless it. And so I think that's been a surprise, and it's been beautiful. I think for us, I'd never thought about building a community where people would be healed in relationship. That just hadn't been on my radar. And yet I think really that's what the Lord's doing. Reuben Morgan is our worship pastor, and he has been writing this song called Returning. And it says, we're coming back, we're coming back, we're coming back to the presence of the Lord. And when we first dreamed about the kind of church we would create, we wrote, may this church be a return to authentic worship, a return to the table, a return to community, a return to the old and the young standing together in church. But when we started singing this song, I went, oh, Lord, this is what you're doing. Wow. And over the past 2 years, I think predominantly through our youth ministry, we've just seen kids bring their parents either back to church or to church for the first time. Amazing. And we're standing in a community now where people are like, oh, I haven't been in church for 12 years, for 8 years, for 6 years, for 2 years. I'd given up on this whole thing. I was never coming back to church. And they're slowly returning back to faith, which is just so fun to watch.
Amazing. Wow. Oh, Cass, that's so encouraging to hear. And I think, I know when we first planted, I think the thing that really caught us by surprise and becomes quite infectious is just like, it feels like it opens you up to a new world. Like there's almost like you drank the Kool-Aid and you're like, I can't get enough of this. I want to see more of this in action. It is very hard, obviously, as you've highlighted, but there's something that just grows your faith and grows your kind of your apostolic bone and the way that you see the world. And I'm curious to hear, like, as you guys have been a year or two into it, and as it's kind of become clear about the type of community that God's forming in and through your leadership and in and through the local, what do you think church planting in Australia needs more or less of? That's a very vague and generic question. Take that as you will. But as you hear that question, what comes to your heart and your mind?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we want to form communities that are deeply spiritual, where the church recovers, like its mandate, not just to deliver meals and to do those sort of things, but to pray and to seek the sacred side of life. Communities that are unmistakably local, that have deep imagination and are maybe shaped and formed by the cross of Jesus. Like we long for the kind of community where we know the names of our people and who our neighbours are, and we enter into relationships around what the pressures are for that community. And we're not just plucking a generic church product off a shelf and kind of embedding it into a community, but where we exist to serve the community that we're a part of. I think that the church need us not just to preach the cross, but to live like cruciformed lives, cross-shaped lives, where people are encountering the beauty of Jesus in whole new ways. And I feel like maybe as Australian churches, we need like more prayer, more hospitality, more generosity, more partnership, more imagination, more beauty, like just more of the Lord at work. I don't know. I want to create places where people don't have to perform, but they can come and be part of an authentic community where God is.
Yeah. Well, Cass, that's a brilliant segue into, of course, in a couple of weeks, as you join us at National Conference, and as we're under this kind of umbrella theme of multiply, how do leaders have a lasting and healthy impact, and we've asked you to speak on the theme of launching spiritual communities, which, of course, is something that you've done very recently. And when you hear or use that language, what do you mean by spiritual community? And off the back of that, why do you think the language of spiritual community, and I think you've touched upon some of this already, is so important in this moment, especially when people are lonely, when they are spiritually curious, when there is that suspicion of institutions and even like baggage or negative experiences they may have historically experienced? What does spiritual community mean for you guys as you launch that and continue to work that out on the way?
Yeah. Oh, wow. I think it's a whole lot of things. I think we've got to create places that just don't argue for Jesus, but actually model the life of Jesus, the kind of community that he instigated. You would be the same. We live in that Acts 2 kind of, how do we create Acts 2 to Acts 4 kind of communities where they're gathering around tables and they have everything in common and they're living this life that is so beautiful and so full of New Testament energy. They're seeing God involved in every aspect of life. I'm like, they're the kind of spiritual communities that we want to create, where God isn't to the side, but he's right at the center of life in Australia in 2026. That he's not an addition to, but he is the reason that we exist. And I guess we want to create the kind of spiritual communities that don't just look inwards, but look outwards. We say at the local, we exist for the love of God and for the good of the city. And when we started, we got so enthralled by the word ecclesia, and that it was a word that the church took. It was actually a community word that meant the gathering of people for the good of the city. And then the church took it to go, well, how can we be the gathered people for the good of the city God's way? And I guess we went, how do we create a spiritual community that meet together and we seek God and we worship and we love him with all of our being? But then when we go in order that Sydney would be better for our existence in her. And so I think we have been thinking lots about that and talking about how do you create a new kind of family. And I was listening to something and the guy said the church was like a stick of dynamite into the Roman world. It blew up all of the social norms. And I'm like, how do we reimagine that and do that again in 2026 in Sydney? Like, what would it look like for the church to really create a stir in society? Because she's so radically God-shaped. So I've been, I'm preaching on Philemon in a few weeks' time. And so I've been right in the middle of a little book with a big question. And right at the end, Paul sends Philemon a note and his slave returned to him. And he kind of grabs Onesimus, who's a slave going back, and he grabs Philemon and he stands in the middle of them going, whatever wrong you have done to each other, let me bear it. Whatever I can do to reconcile you, let me do it. And let's together form this new kind of community where a slave can become a brother. And we can look so different to the world that we're living in. And it's made me think about what does it look like for us to stand in the middle of these spiritual communities and act like Jesus did, where we reconcile people to each other and to God. And we're really going, whatever I can do to help pay back, help fix, help bear the price, let me do that in order that you would see Jesus. So I guess in our community at the moment, there's just people who keep Googling local church and they turn up and they're like, you know, we don't know the first thing about this Jesus guy, but we've heard that you love each other. And on Sunday morning, we sent our first missionaries out and these families came to pray out these families, and they came back at night and they went, the love that you have for each other, we want to get in on that. How do we be part of that? And I'm like, they're the questions that are driving us at the moment, going, how do we model this?
I remember a couple of years ago, Barna in the US did some research around, obviously, you know, as everyone has tried to crack the code of the next generation and wondered what, you know, what are the things of the next generation that are compelling and attractive about faith. And I can remember, and this is a couple of years ago now, so I may get this wrong, but they discovered that yes, the next generation, Gen Z, want to know that the gospel is true, but more than anything, I think they want to know that it's beautiful.
Yeah.
They want to know that actually it does make the world a better place. And as you
Honestly.
were sharing, I kind of get that sense, as in that's beginning to flow out of what you guys are experiencing at local.
That's what we're praying for. And just, honestly, we keep having conversations with all the kids about how do you live when the world's on fire?
Wow.
And the answer's kind of like one blanket for the homeless person at a time, one cup of coffee served, like whatever it is that you can do, let's do those sort of things and improve our local community and then our wider community and then our city. And let's let it flow out empowered and hope-filled, not disappointed and despondent.
Yeah. Wow.
So
I think you've done a great job, Cass, there, talking about obviously the tension of wanting to bring people in and yet also send them out on mission, that actually they would encounter something, but also they'd be on mission for their city throughout the week. And I think when we talk about spiritual communities and how we hold those things in tension, the authenticity, the mission, the reproduction, without becoming overly pragmatic or too inward looking, what have you learnt, I guess, about creating spaces where people can belong and encounter God and yet also imagine themselves into the grand arc, the story of God in the world, in Sydney, in Kellyville? Like, just a small one again.
I'd like to ask you, can you tell me how you've done that at Oak City?
I think that's the joy of, being able to sit across from the table and talk it out, isn't it?
Maybe. Hold on. Authenticity, mission, and reproduction.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think authenticity at this moment in time means more than it probably ever has. Because I've talked to so many people who keep going, the very thing that we do in being Christian means that we want to put these masks on and make everybody feel like we're better Christians than what we are. And I think we all have to get to the point where we're honest about falling short of the glory of God and yet being transformed by Him.
Yeah. And
holding that tension. So I think, like, for me and for our spiritual community, we're doing our very best to bring our real lives to the table, to go, here it is, warts and all, we're not perfect, but Jesus is, and He has grace for each one of us.
Yeah.
We've been teaching Jonah recently, and it's been so horrible because it's been like holding a mirror up and going, oh, I'm Jonah. I don't want my enemies to actually come to the Lord. I don't want... I want this to be about me and my comfort and my blessing and the beauty. And we've had to actually come to terms with the fact that we're called to so much more for people we don't like, and to love our enemies and to ask ourselves really hard questions and then find our way into the story in different ways because we want to look like Jesus. And so I guess that has really been underpinning everything. Mission is an interesting one because we keep going. If our community only exists for itself, then it's not doing what the Lord's asked it to do. So there is God's love has to move us outward. It has to make us want better for everybody that we come into contact with. And we've been really wrestling in our world about evangelism, and actually everywhere we go during the week, recommending Jesus like we would our favourite music, our favourite films, our favourite restaurants. We're so willing to talk about all those things, and so often Christians are so timid in talking about Jesus. So we're like, okay, we can send missionaries and we can go and do hands and feet and take food to the homeless and do all of those sort of things. But if we are primarily a spiritual community, then we primarily have to talk about the hope that we found in Jesus.
Yes.
And so we are wrestling. And really wanting to do that. And then I guess reproduction. I come out of a world that reproduced churches a lot and fast. And I think we have been talking about how do we as a little church and a new church plant actually think about those sort of things, and what should we be reproducing? What should we be contributing to the table? Is it communities? Is it songs? Is it beauty? Like, what are we reproducing? And how do we become healthy enough to start with that we're reproducing good things after our own kind? And I would say we are right in the middle of fleshing that out and asking some of those questions, because we don't want to just reproduce programs or a style of church.
Yes. Yeah.
I think. But we've received life from God and we want to give it away, and we want to make room for other people to carry it forward. And I think in the reproduction conversation for us, there's a real conversation around the kind of church that is not Cass and Rich's church, but is a whole generational offering, that the kids who are coming through go, hey, we believe this and this is ours.
Yes.
And we're all in.
That's beautiful, Cass. I love the way that you've described that. And I think even to that point that you just made at the end there, of course, I think sometimes the thought of reproduction and doing more, and, you know, you're right, to ask that healthy question of what are we actually reproducing, sometimes if we're honest about it, that can just produce a bit of a fatigue. It can make us feel tired.
Oh, yeah.
It can make us feel like, of course, we want to advance the kingdom. We want to reach the lost. We want the beauty of the gospel, all that kind of stuff. But I guess I'd love to ask for a church leader or a church planter who's listening today, feeling like, I already feel like I'm tired enough. I already feel like I'm not doing enough. Maybe you just want to offer some level of encouragement, you know, when it talks about planting something new or pioneering something, that it doesn't have to necessarily look like where you've been from, and in fact there's creative and imaginative ways to do that going forward.
And I think God wants us to, right? He doesn't just want us to spin plates to get more events going. I'm not sure anybody has been transformed by events, but they are transformed in relationship. We've been so convicted by, in the pews, everybody wants something. They want women's programs, they want golfing days, they want men's events, and they're all good. They're all really good, and they all yield some fruit. But I feel like we have to pay real attention to what the Spirit is asking from the particular communities that we're creating, and then partner with Him on that, and not burn ourselves out trying to be impressive.
Yes. Trying to be impressive. I like that.
Yeah. It's true, right?
It is. It totally is. Yeah. Cass, I'd love just to kind of finish our conversation, particularly as we're just a couple of weeks away now from conference and you joining us, and we're delighted that you're coming along. But what are you praying will land in the hearts of leaders at conference? Again, not just as one solo catalytic event, but what the Lord is doing across our nation and in His church.
Yeah.
But what are you praying is going to land in leaders' hearts as we come together in just a couple of weeks' time?
So many things. Honestly, I feel really excited about this, because I'm not sure that there are very many spaces that are just for church planters or church pastors and leaders. And I think there's something beautiful about coming together, not in competition, but to inspire and encourage each other. And so I am really praying for godly friendships that start, that a network of pastors begin to emerge that spur each other on and believe the best in each other and champion each other, and sit around tables and laugh and share stories, and there's a common understanding, but there's also a desire to actually help each other and to partner with each other. I'm praying that as we speak, they're not just inspiring ideas that people go, oh, wow, I've got to put this into practice now, but that instead, as they hear things, they ask the Lord, what does this mean for me and my community? What are you saying to us and our church? That people leave with names in mind and neighbourhoods in mind and fresh vision in mind, that isn't about doing more, but is about seeing better reward for their labour because they've taken time out to hear from the Lord. I think I've really been praying for tired leaders, because there's been moments in the last 2 years where we've gone, is it worth it? Should we actually do this? Where we felt exhausted and spent. And I'm praying that they would experience the kindness of God and His mercy, and not just walk away with heavy shoulders, but they would walk away with joy, that they would listen to what the Lord's doing and remind themselves of the stories in their own communities. And I think I'm ultimately praying that they would encounter God, that the Holy Spirit would get a hold of them all over again, that there would be fresh water and new life, and that they would walk away going, who's Jesus inviting us to become together? Like, what does He want for His church in Australia right now? And how do we each play our unique roles in that? That's what I think I'm praying.
Cass, I love your spirit. I love as the Lord begins to stir you in that way that we're going to come together in just a couple of weeks' time and encounter that together over the course of 3 days on the Gold Coast and connecting with one another and the friendships that will be made and new friends, old friends. And we are so thankful that you guys are setting aside the time to be there, and we cannot wait to be together very, very soon.